Picture two people. Both joined the same company, the same year, as graduates from comparable universities. Both intelligent, both capable, both genuinely committed to the work. If you had assessed them side by side in that first month, their skills, their drive, their ambition, you would have struggled to predict what happened next. 5 years later, one of them is a senior leader. She sits in strategic meetings. Her name is known across departments. When decisions are made, people ask what she thinks. The other person, equally talented, still working hard, is doing the same job he started with. More experienced, certainly, but somehow still invisible. What happened between them? The easy answer is that one got lucky, or knew the right people, or was simply more charismatic. But that answer is too simple to be useful. The more honest answer, and the one that Robert Greene has spent a career exploring, is that one of them understood something the other one didn't. She understood that organizations are not purely meritocracies. They are social systems. And social systems have invisible rules about perception, reputation, influence, timing, and power that operate whether you're aware of them or not. Power is always present in any group of human beings. The only question is whether you are navigating it consciously or being shaped by it blindly. This is the central insight of the 48 Laws of Power. Not a manual for manipulation, but a map of human nature as it actually operates in competitive social environments. And there is no environment more relevant to that map than the modern corporate world. This video is the first episode of a new series, Robert Greene Applied. We take Greene's timeless philosophy and bring it to life in the specific situations most of us face every day. The meetings, the performance reviews, the ambitious colleagues, the difficult managers, the quiet battles for visibility and recognition. Let's begin. Section 1. The invisible rules nobody talks about. There is a story that plays out in nearly every organization in the world, and yet it is almost never discussed openly. A talented person joins a company. They work extremely hard. They produce excellent results. They expect, reasonably, rationally, that the quality of their work will be recognized, that merit will be its own reward, that the path from effort to advancement is linear. And then it isn't. Someone less technically skilled gets promoted first. A colleague who seems to do less receives more recognition. A person with stronger relationships navigates challenges that technically superior individuals crash against. And the talented person, confused and frustrated, concludes that the system is broken, that politics have corrupted the meritocracy, that there is nothing they can do except keep their head down and work harder. What they rarely consider is that the system is not broken. It is simply doing something different from what they thought it was doing. Organizations are not machines designed to identify and reward pure competence. They are communities of human beings, with emotions, insecurities, loyalties, histories, and the full complexity of social behavior. And in any community of human beings, the same dynamics that have governed social groups throughout history are at work. Alliances form, reputations precede people, perception shapes reality, and trust moves at the speed of relationship, not performance review. The sociologist Erving Goffman spent his career studying how people manage their self-presentation in social environments. He used the metaphor of performance. Every person, he observed, is both an actor and an audience. We are constantly performing a version of ourselves, while simultaneously reading the performances of others. This is not dishonesty, It is the fundamental grammar of human social life. In a corporate context, this means that how you are perceived in the organization is not simply a byproduct of your output. It is its own object of management. Your reputation as dependable, visionary, collaborative, resilient, trustworthy is being shaped every single day by what you say in meetings, how you respond under pressure, who you associate with, and what other people choose to say about you when you're not in the room. Your reputation is not what you know about yourself. It is the story the organization tells itself about you. Office politics, in the negative sense, emerges when this reality goes unacknowledged. When people focus only on the visible work and neglect the invisible ecosystem of relationships, perceptions, and influence in which that work exists. Ignoring the ecosystem doesn't make it disappear. It simply means you're navigating it unconsciously, and unconscious navigation has predictable consequences. Robert Greene's laws are not instructions to manipulate this ecosystem. They are a guide to seeing it clearly. And seeing it clearly is the first and most important step toward operating within it with integrity. Section 2. The laws that matter most at work. Let's take 8 of Greene's laws and bring them directly into the modern workplace. Not as tactical tricks, but as frameworks for understanding what's actually happening around you and how to move through it wisely. Law 1. Never outshine the master. Greene's original principle is simple and psychologically precise. People in positions of power have deep, often unconscious needs to feel superior. When a subordinate outshines them too visibly, taking the spotlight, correcting them publicly, making them feel intellectually threatened, the reaction is rarely admiration. It is, almost always, some form of suppression. In the modern workplace, this plays out in the subtlest ways. The brilliant analyst who corrects his director in a board meeting. The sharp new hire who overshadows her manager in front of senior leadership. The team member who sends emails showcasing his insights to people 3 levels above his boss without keeping the boss informed. The ethical interpretation is not that you should make yourself smaller. It is that you should be intelligent about context and audience. Share your best thinking in the right settings. Make your manager look good, and they will almost always return the favor by making you visible to their own peers and superiors. The goal is to be seen as an asset, not a threat. There is a profound difference between building yourself up and building your manager down. The wisest professionals understand that these are not the same move, and only one of them serves your long-term interests. Law 2. Guard your reputation as your most valuable asset. In the 48 Laws of Power, Greene argues that reputation is the cornerstone of power, and that its loss is almost impossible to fully recover from. This is not cynicism. It is an observation about how trust operates in human communities. Reputation in the workplace operates like compound interest. It builds quietly over time through thousands of small interactions. The meeting where you were prepared when no one else was, the crisis where you stayed calm and found solutions, the colleague you helped with no expectation of return. And it erodes in the same way, gradually and then suddenly, when a significant failure is handled poorly, a betrayal of confidence comes to light, or a pattern of behavior finally becomes undeniable. The practical lesson: be deliberate about the story the organization tells about you. Not through self-promotion, which tends to be transparent and often counterproductive, but through consistent behavior that builds a specific character in the minds of those around you. Reliable, thoughtful, fair, discreet. Someone who can be trusted with difficulty. And protect your reputation actively. When misinformation spreads, as it does in every organization, address it with facts and calm authority. Do not ignore it and hope it resolves itself. Reputation requires maintenance. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. This law is perhaps the most misread in the entire book. It does not advocate for deception. It advocates for strategic discretion, the understanding that revealing your full hand before the time is right often works against you. In the workplace, the person who announces every ambition, every plan, every frustration, every aspiration the moment they feel it, gives others an enormous amount of information to work with, and not always in ways that serve them. The colleague who hears you want their position. The manager who feels threatened by your plans. The rival who now knows exactly where your energy is focused. Discretion is not dishonesty. It is the appropriate management of information in an environment where not everyone's interests align with yours. It means keeping your long-term goals to yourself while focusing visibly on your current responsibilities. It means not complaining to the wrong people about the wrong things. It means delivering first and announcing second. Let your work announce itself before your mouth does. Law 4. Say less than necessary. There is a particular kind of intelligence that expresses itself through restraint, and it is rarer and more impressive than the intelligence that expresses itself through volume. In meetings, the person who speaks selectively, choosing their moments carefully, tends to carry more weight than the person who speaks continuously. When every statement is important, the important statements are noticed. When every statement is offered without filter, they blend together into background noise, and worse, they create a map of every uncertainty, every undeveloped thought, every moment of intellectual weakness that can later be used against you. This is not about being silent or withholding value. It is about signal-to-noise ratio. The most effective communicators in any organization understand that brevity, precision, and confidence in expression carry authority that volume never can. They speak when they have something worth saying, and that selectivity itself becomes part of their reputation. Law 5. Win through actions, never through argument. One of the most expensive habits an intelligent person can have in a corporate environment is the need to be right, publicly, verbally, in the moment. Arguments, even when won, tend to create losers who remember losing. The colleague whose idea you demolished in a meeting. The manager whose assumption you publicly corrected. The peer whose approach you argued against in front of leadership. Even when the logic is sound and the facts are on your side, winning an argument is often a Pyrrhic victory. You gain the point and lose the relationship. Greene's principle is elegant in its pragmatism. Instead of arguing that your approach is better, demonstrate it. Instead of debating, do. Instead of convincing through persuasion, convince through evidence. The result speaks in a language that cannot be countered, misquoted, or held against you. In practice, this means volunteering for the projects where you can demonstrate your approach, not just advocate for it. It means letting the prototype speak rather than the pitch. It means being the person who built something that works, not the person who argued most eloquently about why something should work. Law 6. Master the art of timing. The same idea offered at the wrong moment fails. Offered at the right one, it changes everything. Timing in the corporate context requires two things: reading the room accurately and having the patience to wait for the right moment, rather than acting out of emotional urgency. Most career mistakes are not made because people had bad ideas. They are made because people had decent ideas delivered at the wrong time, to the wrong audience, under the wrong circumstances. The person who raises a concern about a strategic direction in the middle of an all-hands presentation has the same information as the person who schedules a private conversation with a senior leader the following week, but they will have very different outcomes. The principle is not to suppress relevant input. It is to be sophisticated about the conditions under which input lands. Read the emotional temperature of the organization. Understand which battles are worth fighting at which moments. Ask for promotions when you have just delivered something significant, not when you're frustrated. Raise difficult topics when the relationship has enough trust in the bank to absorb them. Timing is the difference between courage and recklessness. Law 7. Avoid the unhappy and chronically negative. Every organization has them. The perpetual cynic. The person for whom every initiative is doomed, every leader is incompetent, and every change is a threat. They are not without insight. Cynics are often perceptive people whose trust has been broken enough times that pessimism has become their permanent operating system. The danger is not that their perspective is entirely wrong. The danger is what happens to you through sustained proximity. Cynicism is one of the most contagious emotional states available to human beings. And in a workplace context, being closely associated with people who are known for negativity is a reputational risk, regardless of your own attitude. This is not about avoiding all critical thinking or surrounding yourself only with positivity. It is about the difference between constructive skepticism, which asks hard questions in service of better outcomes, and chronic negativity, which has become its own reward. The former makes organizations stronger, the latter makes careers shorter. Protect your environment as carefully as you protect your work. The people you associate with, over time, become part of how others categorize you. Law 8. Make people feel seen and important. Perhaps the most quietly powerful law in Greene's entire framework, and the one with the clearest ethical application. Every human being, regardless of their title or seniority, has a fundamental need to feel that their contribution matters. To feel that they are seen as individuals, not just as functions. And the professional who understands this, who takes the time to genuinely acknowledge the contributions of others, to remember what people care about, to listen with actual attention, creates loyalty, goodwill, and trust that no formal authority can purchase. This is not flattery, which is transparent and tends to backfire. It is genuine attention. Remembering that your colleague's project presentation was last week and asking how it went. Crediting the team member who gave you the insight that shaped your proposal. Acknowledging a peer's success publicly and without resentment. These are small acts. They cost nothing. But they compound into the kind of social capital that, in the long run, is more durable than any technical skill. The most influential people in any organization are almost always those who make others feel valuable. Not because they are strategic about it, because it is who they genuinely are. Section 3. Common career mistakes intelligent people make. Intelligence, as it turns out, does not protect you from the most common career mistakes. In some ways, it makes certain mistakes more likely. Because intelligent people tend to believe, and not without reason, that quality of thinking should be its own currency. That if they see something clearly, the clarity of the insight should carry it. That if they work harder and produce more, the difference will speak for itself. It rarely does, not on its own. The first and most common mistake is believing that hard work speaks for itself. Work does not speak. People speak about work. And the people whose work gets spoken about most are usually not the ones who worked hardest in isolation. They are the ones who made their work legible, shareable, and attributable to themselves in the minds of the people who make decisions. Visibility is not vanity. It is a professional responsibility. The second mistake is arguing instead of influencing. Intelligent people have a particular weakness here because they tend to believe that the strongest argument should win, and they are sometimes genuinely surprised when it doesn't. But organizational decisions are rarely made on logic alone. They are made by human beings with relationships, histories, and emotional investments in particular outcomes. The person who can address the emotional reality of a situation, not just its logical structure, is the person who actually moves things. Third, seeking validation from the wrong sources at the wrong times. The need to be told that you are doing well, to have your abilities acknowledged, your effort recognized, your worth confirmed, is entirely human. But when it becomes the primary driver of behavior, it creates a dangerous dependency. You start optimizing for approval rather than impact. You soften feedback that needs to be heard. You avoid risks that might invite criticism. The pursuit of validation can quietly hollow out a career. Fourth, oversharing. There is a particular kind of openness that feels like authenticity, but functions as overexposure. Sharing frustrations with the wrong colleagues, disclosing ambitions prematurely, expressing doubts about leadership in environments where those doubts will travel further than intended. In any social system, information is power. What you share, and with whom and when, shapes your position, whether you intend it to or not. Fifth, confusing honesty with bluntness. Honesty is one of the most important qualities in any professional. Bluntness, the delivery of honest assessments without regard for timing, context, or emotional consequence, is its clumsy cousin. The person who is blunt often believes they are simply being direct, but directness without tact is not integrity. It is a failure of communication, dressed in the costume of virtue. What all of these mistakes share is a kind of social naivety, a faith that the world will respond to pure merit, pure logic, pure honesty, as if these qualities exist outside the human context in which they are received. Robert Greene's great contribution is to say, yes, these qualities matter enormously, and they work best when they are understood as existing within a social ecosystem, not above it. Section 4. Robert Greene in today's workplace. If the dynamics Greene describes were relevant when the book was first published, they have become even more relevant in the specific workplace landscape that exists today. Consider the shift to hybrid and remote work. In a traditional office environment, visibility was partly automatic. You were physically present, your manager could observe your work ethic, your contributions were witnessed in real time. In a hybrid or remote context, visibility must be constructed deliberately. The person who produces excellent work in isolation and expects it to speak for itself in a digital organization is operating on an assumption that the environment no longer supports. Presence is now a choice, and those who choose it, wisely and consistently, maintain influence that remote invisibility cannot. Then there is the question of personal brand, a concept that 20 years ago would have seemed relevant only to marketers and celebrities, but is now a practical reality for every professional. LinkedIn has created a public record of your professional identity that exists entirely outside the organization you work for. Your posts, your endorsements, your network, your commentary, all of it is building a version of you in the minds of people who have never worked alongside you. This is the reputation management Greene wrote about, operating at a previously unimaginable scale. The rise of artificial intelligence adds a layer of complexity that would have been unrecognizable even a decade ago. As AI systems become capable of performing more cognitive tasks at lower cost, the question of what makes a human professional valuable becomes increasingly urgent. The answer, increasingly, is not technical precision. AI can be very precise. It is the fundamentally human capacities that Greene's philosophy touches throughout: judgment, relationship, trust, political awareness, adaptability, and the kind of contextual intelligence that no algorithm currently replicates. The professionals who thrive in the AI era will not be those who compete with machines at machine tasks. They will be those who are irreplaceably human, who can navigate the complexity of organizational relationships, build genuine trust across diverse teams, read the emotional temperature of a room, and make wise decisions in conditions of genuine ambiguity. These are the capacities that Greene's laws, understood ethically, are designed to develop. Corporate restructuring, the constant reorganizations, leadership changes, and strategic pivots that characterize modern organizations, creates another arena where political awareness becomes not optional, but essential. The professional who has built genuine relationships across the organization, who is known and trusted by people at multiple levels and in multiple functions, survives restructuring with far more resilience than the one whose value exists only within a single team or a single reporting line. In times of organizational change, your network is your stability. Not the network you have on paper, but the network of people who will genuinely advocate for your value when the structure shifts. Section 5. The ethical path to influence. Everything we've discussed so far can be misread if we're not careful. The laws can sound, in isolation, like a toolkit for the ambitious and the ruthless. Manage perceptions, guard your reputation, be discreet about your intentions. And a certain kind of mind reads these principles and hears, be manipulative, be calculating, treat people as pieces on a board. This is the exact opposite of what Greene's deeper philosophy suggests. Greene himself makes a distinction, one that is often overlooked in popular readings of the 48 Laws, between the person who uses these principles as tools of manipulation and the person who uses them as tools of understanding. The manipulator sees other people as objects to be moved. The strategically aware person sees other people as complex human beings whose psychology they are trying to understand clearly enough to engage with honestly. The distinction matters enormously, and it is visible in outcomes. Manipulation works in the short term. It produces quick wins, temporary advantages, impressions that serve immediate purposes. But it has a structural weakness. It requires the target to remain unaware. The moment the person being manipulated understands what is happening, trust collapses, and trust, once broken at depth, is extraordinarily difficult to restore. The manipulator's power is therefore always fragile, always dependent on the continuing ignorance of others. Genuine influence operates entirely differently. It works precisely because the other person is aware, because they know you are trustworthy, because they have experienced your reliability, because they believe your interests and theirs are compatible. Influence of this kind does not require anyone to remain unaware of anything. In fact, it grows stronger the more clearly others see it. This is the distinction between leadership and manipulation, between influence and deception, between commanding respect and commanding fear. Fear is efficient in the moment and corrosive over time. Respect is slower to build and far more durable. The ethical professional who understands Greene's framework is not the one who has learned to play people. They are the one who has developed a sophisticated understanding of social reality, who knows how reputations work, why timing matters, what makes people feel valued, how organizations actually make decisions, and uses that understanding in service of genuine contribution. Authenticity in this context is not the absence of self-awareness. It is the alignment of self-awareness with genuine values. The person who is authentic and politically naive is not more trustworthy than the person who is authentic and politically sophisticated. They are simply less effective. And effectiveness in service of good values is not something to be embarrassed about. True power is not the ability to control other people. It is the depth of trust others place in you, and the consistency of character that earns it. The mindful reflection. Let's sit with something before we close. There is a version of the message of this video that could leave you feeling calculating, strategic in a way that feels slightly cold, aware of the game in a way that makes human connection feel like a performance. I want to offer a different version. The most powerful insight in Robert Greene's work is not about tactics. It is about the nature of human communities. It is the observation that whenever human beings gather in groups, families, friendships, organizations, societies, certain dynamics emerge. Hierarchies form, reputations develop, alliances shift, trust is extended and withdrawn, power moves. These are not signs of corruption, they are signs of humanity. And the person who tries to live outside these dynamics, who refuses to engage with the social reality of their environment in the name of purity, is not more virtuous than the person who engages with it thoughtfully. They are simply less effective, and often, in their ineffectiveness, less able to do the good they intended. Perhaps success in the corporate world is not about playing political games. Perhaps it is about understanding the game well enough to remain authentic without becoming naive, honest without being careless, ambitious without being predatory, political without being calculating. The people who navigate organizations with the most grace, who rise not through maneuvering but through genuine mastery, are almost always the ones who have stopped fighting the reality of human nature and started working with it, who have found the path between naivety and cynicism and walk it with their values intact. The wisest professionals are not those who seek power over others. They are those who refuse to surrender power over themselves. That power, the power of self-knowledge, of emotional regulation, of clear values that don't bend under social pressure, is the only kind that lasts. It cannot be taken by a restructuring. It doesn't erode with a bad performance review. It doesn't depend on the favor of any single leader or the health of any single organization. It is yours. And developing it is the real work. Before you go, I want to ask you something worth thinking about. Every organization has unwritten rules, norms that nobody puts in the handbook, lessons that nobody teaches in the onboarding, dynamics that you only learn by being inside them for long enough, paying close enough attention. What is the most important unwritten rule you've learned in the workplace, and how did you learn it? Leave your answer in the comments, not the polished LinkedIn-ready version, the real one. Because these conversations, between people navigating the same complex realities, are often where the most honest and useful insights live. If this video gave you a new way of seeing something you've experienced, share it with a colleague or a friend who's navigating a similar landscape. And subscribe for the next episode of Robert Greene Applied, where we'll bring his philosophy to a different arena of modern life. Take care, and take the long view.